Hello everyone, and welcome back to another ghost tour. I suppose. I kind of figured I should figure out a name for this series, I guess. So before I get into this subject, I'm gonna have my usual disclaimer. Please keep the comments kind. These types of telling of the tales and then sort of digging into why they are harmful actually can be very difficult for some people. So please take care of yourselves first if it is not something that you enjoy. And if you are listening to this and you're not enjoying the deep dive, maybe just sit this video out. It might not be for you. Also, as always, I am doing my very best here. I will link everything in the description box below for the stuff that I found that really kind of brings to light, I think, the core of the situation and why I feel so strongly about talking about these things. So the next instance of the tales we get is from Key West, and this is another one that unfortunately is apparently lost to time for the Haunted History episodes, so I will not be able to link anything for the video itself, but I do have some other things that I'm going to be sharing. So the story that they were actually telling in the Key West episode is two. And the first one is from the Culsa Native American tribe that was slaughtered on the beaches of what is now Florida. But I'm going to read from a particular article, the details of the story of this tribe that seems to have been lost to time. And I know that maybe that's a very strange phrase to use, especially if there are any folks of the Culsa indigenous tribe that are listening to me right now. But finding this information was kind of like pulling teeth. So this is an article from the Key Wester. It was written on July 27th, 2011. And it is a brief history of Key West by Island Glen. Florida's Culsa Indian tribe was forced to migrate south to Key West, where they fought to keep these southernmost lands as the New World was settled. In the process, many Native Americans were killed, and the Key West beaches were used as burial grounds. According to Key West lore, Spanish settlers found bones of the dead Native Americans strewn on the beach and called the island Cayo Huiso, meaning Island of Bones. So, actually, unfortunately, the mention of that indigenous tribe is minimal in terms of that article, because it seems more interested in just kind of talking about the colonizers and what they actually just did to the area in terms of buying and selling and things of that nature. So maybe not the best resource that I uncovered back in 2020. I mean, seriously, if anyone actually has better links to this particular, I don't want to say legend. It's not a legend. It's a thing that happened. But also, it appeared on the Haunted History episode. So, it's going back to that whole, angry Native Americans, haunting a place where they were dealt a great injustice, but specifically haunting rich white people. So, that's a thing that continues to happen within these stories, and again is another reason that I am talking about them, because it is a stereotype that persists to this day. If this is a part of your family's history and you actually know the real story, please drop any and all information in the comments. I would be happy to read those kinds of stories, and also just better history breakdown, honestly, because this little snippet wasn't very good, actually. So, anyway, moving on, we are going to talk about the next instance from Key West, which involves two things that were reported to be related, but as it turns out are not. The first is just this beautiful and creepy tombstone marker of a bound woman. It was suggested that it was put there to commemorate the body of Elena Hoyos, who died of tuberculosis in 1931. But as it turns out, no one really knows why that grave marker is there or what it actually might mean. So the article that I discovered for this particular tombstone comes from the Cult of Weird. And it says, Strange Graves, the Bound Woman of Key West Cemetery. So the grave of Archibald John Sheldon Yates in Key West Cemetery, adorned with a statue of a nude woman with her hands bound behind her back, is a long-standing Key West mystery. Beneath the blue skies and palm trees of Key West, Florida, the historic Key West Cemetery is the final resting place of numerous tragedies, including slave burials, brutal murders, Civil War soldiers, sailors who died when the USS Maine was blown up in 1898, even the bizarre story of Carl von Cossel's demented love affair with a corpse. Established in 1847, the cemetery was built on the highest point in Key West after a hurricane wiped out the old graveyard and scattered bodies the previous year. Among the monuments and above-ground vaults are legendary locals like Barkeep, Sloppy Joe Russell, and humorous epitaphs like I'm just resting my eyes, a devoted fan of singer Julio Iglesias. Hypochondriac B.P. Pearl Roberts, I told you I was sick. But perhaps the strangest thing you will find while wandering around the Old Town Cemetery is the grave of Archibald John Sheldon Yates, adorned with the statue known as the Bound Woman. The figure said to represent Yates's wife, Magdalena, sits nude above his head, her hands tied behind her back. In the book The Florida Keys, A History and Guide, Joy Williams writes, "She is no angel, certainly, and her posture seems to suggest something other than grief. But Archibald John Sheldon Yates really, really wanted her on his grave, and there she is." The Bound Woman has been mystifying visitors of Key West Cemetery for years. Why Yates insisted on having this statue placed on his grave, or what he meant it to represent, is an enduring local mystery. Now, I am also going to link the other article in here as well that it talks about Elena Hoyos and the creepy man who stole her corpse and claimed it as his bride, because, according to him, Elena appeared to him and sang him the Mexican love song La Boda Negra, or The Black Wedding, wherein the sad lover of a dead bride carries her corpse away. I think the worst part about this story is that when all was revealed, the public sided with her kidnapper, and her body was put on display for all to see. And there were also implications of necrophilia. Besides this article that I'm about to read about that particular situation, I am also going to link Ask a Mortician's video about it because she goes into more detail and it is a fantastic video. So this is a story of Elena Hoyos. Her original name was Maria Elena Milagro de Hoyos. She was born on the 31st of July, 1909 in Key West, Monroe County, Florida. She died October 25th, 1931. She was 22 in Key West, Monroe County. The burial site is Key West Cemetery in Monroe County. This is a folk figure. That's what the website actually says. It says that she is a folk figure. She was part of one of the most bizarre, quote-unquote, love stories in history. Born the daughter of a cigar maker, she came from a large Cuban-American family. In 1930, while living in Key West, Florida, her mother took her to a hospital after she had taken ill. She was diagnosed with tuberculosis, which was then incurable, and checked in a facility where she stayed with other patients suffering the same disease. It was there that she met Dr. Carl von Kossel, a doctor who was working to find a cure. Kossel fell in love with her despite the fact that she was legally married. Despite his best efforts, Kossel could not save Elena, and she succumbed to the illness on October 25th, 1931, and entombed in her family crypt. Von Kossel asked the family if he could keep Elena's body in a casket filled with formaldehyde to preserve her. But the curious began wondering why von Kossel visited her night after night. When his visits stopped, all assumed he had died. Years later, he was found living in a house near the sea, and through an investigation by Elena's sister, it was found that he had been living with her corpse, preserving it with oiled silk and wax to slow the decomposition. He had also used flowers and other scents to keep out the odor. Most curiously, he had made a death mask of her face to preserve her beauty. Von Kossel was arrested for body snatching, but was not indicted because the statute of limitations had passed. He was examined by doctors and found to be perfectly sane, though it remains a mystery of how he lived with a corpse for so many years. Elena's body was reclaimed and buried by the family in a secret location, so that neither von Kossel or the curious could disturb her grave. He died of an apparent suicide in his home in July of 1952, lying next to the death mask of his quote-unquote beloved. The strange death mask was put on public display as the story became legend. So, I think Caitlin has a much gentler way of putting how she feels about this man body snatching a Mexican woman's corpse, but I think I'm going to be less than generous. Not okay. Not okay in the least. Obviously, like, we don't steal bodies, guys. Like, we just leave that for the Dr. Frankensteins in the movies. You know, we're not supposed to actually do that in real life. I am glad that the family of this young woman was able to rebury their daughter and absolutely keep it a secret, considering what happened. I don't think that putting the death mask on public display is very kind, because that still strips autonomy away from Elena. Even though she is buried in an unmarked grave, possibly, in secret, definitely, There's no reason for that death mask to be just kind of floating about in a museum somewhere. That is her likeness. And she never gave consent to become a quote-unquote folk figure. She was just a young woman who died tragically of an incurable disease. And to keep on display the strange preservation of a man who stole her corpse is still feeding into that sort of voyeuristic tendency of the death of BIPOC women. That's my opinion on it. So I don't know if that has changed to this day. I don't know if anyone has said anything about that mask being on display and people being like, hey, you know what, that is not okay. We need to be removing that from the public viewing and return it to whatever family members she might still have left in the area or wherever they have gone, because that's still her body. That's still her bodily autonomy on display for people to see as sort of like a sideshow attraction. It just doesn't sit right with me. But anyway, guys, that is all for this segment. As always, thank you for listening. If you are enjoying these, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I will not be doing these next October. This will be the only little mini series I do for this month. But I have so many other things here on my channel to keep you entertained. So subscribe anyway and look at all my other stuff. And I will see you all in the next one. Good night.